All right, so engaging learners. As always, this webinar is 1 hour long and you will find yourself on mute until the end of the webinar, just to make sure that the recording is good quality, no interruptions or background noise. If you do have questions throughout the presentation, you can feel free to put them in the chat and Laura or Ariel will address the question for you. We will also make sure that we have time at the end of the webinar to ask questions as well. The webinar is being recorded, and the recording is going to be sent out in a follow-up email later today or tomorrow morning. This webinar is part of our basic training series of webinars on Brightspace. This series loops over on itself, and it is going to continue through the fall and the spring semester as well. To quickly run through what the series consists of, getting started with Brightspace is a high-level overview of the Brightspace platform, basic navigation interface. ABCs of content is all about the building blocks of your courses, your modules, content, topics, multimedia, stuff like that. And then we have assessing learning, which is coming next. And that's focused primarily on creating and grading assignments, but there's also other assessing tools in there. We're going to talk about rubrics, a quick eval. The last two webinars are quizzes and gradebook. They're both deep dives into those specific functionalities of Brightspace. There is additional training available. We have access to the Brightspace community for free if you log in with your CUNY username. We also have the Brightspace resource course within our CUNY Brightspace environment. You are enrolled as a student and you can go through the course to see what a student sees when they are within a course. There's also videos on YouTube. We, the LMS Transition Learning team, has a YouTube channel with the recordings of these webinars, as well as short videos on helpful functionalities within assignments, quizzes, and discussion boards. The parent company of Brightspace, D2L, also has their own YouTube channel with short video clips that go over some Brightspace functionalities. And finally, we have ServiceNow, or CUNY IT Help, which is a CUNY-wide platform on all things technology related within CUNY, including tutorials, frequently asked questions, anything like that for Brightspace. But today we are focusing on engaging learners, and this is our agenda for today. We're going to look at using announcements as well as internal email. We're going to set up some discussion boards. We're going to set up and manage group activities using the Groups tool. We're going to take a look at the Class Progress tool. And finally, we're going to set up an intelligent agent, which is a Brightspace tool for automated communications. Before I dive into the actual Brightspace environment, I do want to say a few words about why it's important to engage learners. If you're familiar with the Universal Design for Learning, which is the scientific framework to improve and optimize teaching, it has three basic tenets of how you can make learning a great experience for everyone involved. And those three tenets are to provide multiple means of engagement, representation, and action and expression. So today we are talking about engagement and the different ways that you can engage your students with each other, with the content, and with you as their instructor. So I do recommend, if you haven't had a chance to learn about the Universal Design for Learning, going on their website and looking through the different checkpoints and suggestions for how and why you want to engage your learners. Some of the highlights you can see on the screen, but if you go to the website, it will have a lot more detail. So if you haven't been to Brightspace yet, all you have to do is go to brightspace.cuny.edu and log in with your CUNY login credentials. These are the same credentials that you use to access Blackboard, CUNY First, Microsoft 365. Those are your username would be the first name, that last name, the last two digits of your MPL ID at login.cuny.edu. And with that, I am going to switch over to the Brightspace environment. Or actually, before that, I do have something I want to share with you in case you're not aware. Just drop the link in the chat. So this is the Brightspace transition page on the cuny.edu website, and it has a lot of resources that you might find useful. I want to point out just a few of them. So if you scroll down a little bit, there's some areas within the page you can jump to. If I jump to training and resources, this is where you can find resources, both the ones provided by CUNY as well as the ones provided by D2L. This is that YouTube playlist I was talking about earlier, and some student resources as well. Right here is where you can find the LMS Transition YouTube channel with the links to the previously recorded webinars, as well as some short videos on the life cycle of assignments, quizzes, discussion boards. If I scroll down a little further, very useful information here. This is where you can find your campus team's contacts. So a lot of the questions that you're going to have will have to be answered by someone at your campus, because each campus is doing their own thing with Brightspace. They have slightly different configurations, especially when it comes to third-party integrations. Those are things that are decided on a campus by campus basis. So if you do have a question like that, you want to reach out to someone at your campus, but you don't know who, you can just come to this page, locate your campus, and then just click on it to expand. And then there you will see if there's a website, if there's a shared mailbox you can email, as well as a list of people that are involved with this LMS transition project. And all of these people you can reach out to and ask your question. They should be able to assist you. So now I am going to switch over to Brightspace. And as always, I'm going to start with a disclaimer that what I see on my screen will not necessarily be exactly what you see on your screen. As I mentioned, each campus has their own configuration. So the theme of what the page looks like, as well as the options that we have across the navigation bar, are going to vary on a campus by campus basis. For the most part, almost everything I will be talking about will be available to all of you, regardless of what campus you're on. You'll just have to look for it in maybe a slightly different order on the navigation bar. So since we are talking about engaging learners, I am going to jump into one of my sample courses. So we have some learners to engage. And the first thing we're going to talk about today is the announcements. So you're already familiar with what announcements are from Blackboard. Announcements are just that. You want to announce something, it's posted on your class page, as well as goes out as a notification in an email to the students that are enrolled in your class. You can get to the announcement tools in several ways. The first way is typically when you go to your homepage, either on the left or right-hand side, you're going to see this announcements widget. And you would just be able to click on the widget title to go into the tool. If you can't locate it, the other way to get to the announcements tool, as well as every other tool available to you within Brightspace, is through the course admin area. So I always recommend that the first thing you locate on your navigation bar is the course admin link. For me, it's front and center here. For you, it might be further down the navigation bar or possibly in one of the drop downs. So I do suggest that you poke around, click on all the drop downs, and familiarize yourself with where everything is located. Once you find course admin, that's your way to get to every other tool within your course. And here's announcements. Clicking on that takes me to the same place that I would go to if I clicked on the announcement widget title. And where it takes me is to a list of all of my existing announcements. So if you have maybe migrated or copied a course over that's been migrated for you from Blackboard to Brightspace, it would have copied over with all of your old announcements. Sometimes we want to reuse our announcements, so we would just change the start dates, for example. Other times we don't really need the old announcements and we want to start with a clean slate. So if that's the case, you want to delete all of your announcements, you can click the checkbox at the top to select everything. Or if you just want to delete some of your announcements, you can click the checkbox next to those announcements. And then once you are done selecting all of them, you can go up and click the delete button. Confirm. And the selected announcements are now deleted. So if you wanted to delete all of them, you could. If you're starting from scratch, so you're not copying over any existing material, you're just starting with a blank slate, this page is going to be fully empty, and the only option you're going to have is to create a new announcement. So that's what we're going to start with. We're going to create a new announcement, go through all the options there, and then we'll take a look at how we can manage existing announcements. I'm going to create a new announcement by clicking on the New Announcement button. And it is going to ask for a headline. The headline is going to be what shows up above the announcement. And in the notification email that goes out, the headline is going to be in the subject of the email. As you can tell by the asterisk here, the headline and the content are both mandatory, so you can't create an announcement without both. And within the content area, you have all of the same options that you have elsewhere in terms of formatting or adding items to it. So you can format the text however you want, color, bolding, you can make a bullet list. We also have all of our favorite buttons here that we explored in ABCs of Content webinar. So we can insert external files, we can link to existing activities, we can add images. Something I do want to point out to you is that when the email notification goes out about the announcement, the student will see just the images and the text of the announcement. And if there are any links, the links will be available also. However, if you are including any videos or video notes in the announcement, they will not be visible in the email. The students would have to log into Brightspace and navigate to your course homepage in order to be able to view the videos within the announcement. So let's say this announcement is for extra credit. So what I want to do is let my students know that there's an extra credit opportunity. And I want to link to the extra credit assignment. So I'm going to use my Insert Quick Link button, which allows me, if we remember correctly, to link to any of the existing items within my course. So I can link to an assignment, going further down, here are some of the options that come along with my announcement. The first option is, do I want to show the start date? If I keep this selected, the students will see exactly when the announcement was posted or when it went live. If I uncheck it, the announcement will just say that it was posted, but it will not have a date associated with it. Next, we have the start date. So if we're preparing announcements ahead of time, and then we want them to go live at specific points in time, we can set up a start date that happens in the future. So maybe I don't want my students to see this announcement until Monday morning. I can definitely set that up down to the date as well as time. If I want my announcement to go live as soon as I click publish, I just want to make sure that it is set to today's date and current time. If I want the announcement to disappear after a certain point, maybe it's no longer relevant, For example, this is extra credit for October. It's not really relevant after the end of October, so maybe I will set it to end on November 1st at midnight. Continuing on, I can add a file, I can record audio or video. Again, just keep in mind that the students will not be able to access these through the email notification, but they will be able to access all of these items when they're logged into Brightspace and on your course homepage. Finally, I can either publish, which means that this announcement is going to go out right this second, or I can save as a draft, which means that I can come back, make changes, and then publish it. I'm just going to go ahead and publish. And now the latest announcement that I've published is showing up at the top. So now that we've created an announcement from scratch, I want to take a look at the announcements tool page and the different things we can see here and the different options we have. So obviously, as I scroll through, I can see the headline for each announcement, and I can see the text of each announcement as well. I can see the start date and the end date, if applicable, and I can see the status. Has it been published? Is it still in draft mode? I don't know if I have any that are not those two statuses. Probably should have prepared one. But if it has been dismissed, it'll show up as dismissed. Next to the headline of the announcement, there's a little drop down. And if I click on that, I can see all of the different options of things I could do within the announcement. So I can obviously go in and edit it. I can take a look at it. I can dismiss it from widget. So I'm going to open a separate tab just to show you what I'm talking about. So on my homepage, on the announcements widget, I can basically see all of the different announcements that have been posted. And there's also the show all announcements. By the way, while we are here, I do also want to show you what it looks like when the start date is part of the announcement right here. And the one we just posted didn't have a start date, so it just says who it was posted by, but not when. Also, as you can see, they are in chronological order. So the newest one is always going to be on top. Now, if there is announcements that I don't really want to delete, like I want students to be able to go back and look at them if they want to, but they're not relevant anymore, I don't want them to be on the home page, I can dismiss them from the widget. And I can do that by clicking on the dropdown and selecting Dismiss from Widget. Now it's going to say dismissed. And if I refresh my home page, I can see that that September announcement has disappeared. Students would still be able to see it if they go down and click on Show All Announcements, but it's not going to take up room on the main page. The second thing I want to show you is pinning an announcement. So let's say there's an announcement that remains relevant throughout the entire semester, and I always want it to stay at the top of the list. If I click on the drop-down next to it and I click Pin to Top, now there's a little pin icon next to it. And if I refresh my homepage, I can see that this announcement is now appearing at the top. Even though it's not the latest posted, it will always appear at the very top. And you can pin multiple announcements. So if you want 2 or 3 announcements pinned up, you can pin them and they will be on the top, and then the rest of the announcements would appear underneath. Next, let's say I want to make a change in the announcement. Maybe I realized that I put in the wrong date. Maybe I realized there's a typo. Let's say this week. When I'm making an edit to a published announcement, Right here is an option for me to decide whether it's a major edit or not. If it is something major, like I put in the wrong date, or there's something that students definitely need to know, and I check this off, the students will receive a second notification with the updated text. If it was just a typo and I want to make sure it's fixed in the announcement, but I don't really think it's important enough to send out a second email, I can leave this off. And when I click update, it is going to update the text of the announcement, but it's not going to send out an email to my students. I think I've pretty much exhausted announcements. So the next thing I want to talk about very briefly is internal email. An easy way for you to get to your internal email so you can email your students would be through the course admin area, through the class list. So right here is my entire class list. I can see all of my students, and I can either select all of them, or I can select specific students if I want to email maybe half the class with different instructions from the other half, whatever the case may be. Once I've selected, I can click on the email button, and it will generate an email for me with the students in the BCC area, so they will not be able to see each other. And I can type in my email. Now, I do want to warn you here that the internal Brightspace email has a lot of limitations, and there's really nothing you can include in it besides plain text that would go through to the students. So if you include any images, any videos, anything like that, as of right now, those things are not going through. I know our team is looking at whether that's something we can fix, but for the time being, if you do have to send out an email within Brightspace, I suggest that it be text only because the students will not be able to access anything else. Also, the way that the Brightspace email works is that it's send only, so there's no inbox. You can just send emails out. When students receive them, it will look like they came from your campus email or whatever email you have associated with you in CUNY First. So when they click reply, it will just be replying to your regular campus email. So at no point will they see that it's coming from Brightspace. It will just look like it's coming from you. The next thing I want to talk about is the discussion boards. So we can access them through the discussions link, or if you can't find that on your navigation bar, as always, you can go through course administration and find discussions that way. If you have copied over a course that migrated from Blackboard, you will probably see your discussions in here. You will not see any of the student data because whenever we're copying over either between two Brightspace courses or from Blackboard to Brightspace, we do not copy student data. So the only things you will see are the items that were posted by the instructor. So if you had any prompts, if you had like a basic structure of discussion boards, those will come over, but nothing that your students have posted will. And this is kind of what it looks like. We're going to dive into it a little bit. It's slightly different from the way it's structured in Blackboard because it has a additional level to it. So what we have within Brightspace are forums, topics, and threads. A forum is this headline right here. It is kind of an overarching umbrella. A forum on its own is not a place to post. It's literally just an organizational tool. So for example, I have the weekly discussions. I have a midterm project. It's just the way to organize my discussion boards. If you are someone that doesn't use that many discussion boards, maybe throughout your entire semester you only have, 4 or 5, then you don't really need more than one forum. You don't need to divvy up your discussion boards to organize them. The next level down is a topic. So this would be a topic, right? I would create a topic as the instructor, and then my students would be able to go into each topic and post threads. So I can see each thread, I can see who it was posted by, when, and I can, of course, click on it to be able to view the thread. I can reply to it. I can view other folks' replies. In fact, let me navigate to a thread that has some replies. So here's a thread started by a student. Here is a reply. So now let's go through and create some forums, topics, and threads from scratch. So when we're first starting out, we have to have a forum. If you're starting with a blank page, you have to start with a forum. You can't create topics without them being a part of a forum. So we're going to go to new forum. And this one, maybe we'll just leave it miscellaneous. I can add a description to it if I want. I have some options here. Do I want to allow anonymous posts? Do I want my students to have to start a thread before they can read and reply to other threads? This might be relevant for graded assignments, but maybe not for just a miscellaneous area. Do I want a moderator to approve individual posts before they're displayed? And do I want to display the forum description within the topics? I'm just going to click Save and Close for now. And new items I create are always going to show up at the bottom. So I'm going to scroll down, and here is my forum. Here's the title. Here's the description. As you can tell, it's just a heading. There's nowhere really to post. So first, we're going to have to create some topics. I'm going to click on the drop-down menu next to the heading and click on Add Topic. Now, this is where we're actually creating the discussion board that students will interact with. So for this one, maybe I just want a place for my students to be able to ask questions that are not necessarily falling into any of the weekly discussions, maybe questions about the syllabus or questions about the final, whatever the case may be. So here's my title. I can add a description. I don't have to. I have some options on the side. So I can have a start and end date if I want this discussion board to appear at a certain date and time. I can set that up. If I want it to disappear, I can do that as well. I can allow learners to hide their names. So if I want to start a topic that's anonymous, do learners have to start a thread before they can view or reply to other threads? And then if I am grading this topic, I can add a rubric if I want my students to be able to, look at the criteria and then craft a response to something or a short essay as part of their discussion board. I can add a rubric here. And these are the same rubrics that we would use with the assignments. We can create new ones on the spot, or if we already have some existing rubrics, or if some were added to our class for us. I know some campuses might be thinking about doing that. I can click on Add Existing to take a look at what rubrics are available. So, and if I do want this to be graded, all I have to do is click in the Grade Out of Ungraded item, and it will automatically add it to the gradebook as its own grade item. If I decide that I click that by accident, and obviously it's, just ask the instructor, it should not be graded, I can click on the drop-down here and reset it back to ungraded. Gonna click Save and Close. And I'm gonna scroll all the way down. And here it is. This is the forum. This is the topic. Students will be able to see this. They will be able to click on it, and they will be able to start a new thread. Students are able to start new threads in all of the topics. They can also reply to the threads in the topics as well. Now that we've learned how to set this up, let's take a look at what we can see on the screen when our discussion boards are active. So if there are some threads or replies posted within a topic that we haven't read, you will see this bar as well as a bolded number. That's actually a link under the posts or threads area. And if I want to navigate directly to the posts that I haven't read, all I have to do is just click on this link and it will take me straight to the items I haven't read. These are also, you can see they have the bar across the left to let me know that they are unread. When I am within each topic, I can subscribe to it. I can also subscribe to it from this main page as well. So let's say for the Ask the Instructor, I want to be notified whenever a student posts here, because if they have a question, I want to know that I have an answer for them. So if I click on the dropdown and click on subscribe, it'll ask me, how do I want to be notified? Do I just want to see it in the Brightspace notifications area? Do I want it to be included in my email summary of activity? Click subscribe. And I am able to view all of the different items that I'm subscribed to under the subscriptions tab. So far we've been under the discussion list tab. If I go to subscriptions, I can see all of the items I'm subscribed to. So far, it's just the one topic, but if there were more, I would be able to see them all in a list. The last tab here, the statistics tab, just shows me a basic breakdown of how each of my students is doing in the discussion boards. For each student in my class list, I can see how many threads they have started, how many replies they have posted, and how many posts they have read. I also have some basic statistics here, total threads, total replies. So this is like kind of a dashboard at a glance to see how we're doing in the discussion list. Now, the final thing I want to show you here is that if the discussion board if it has its own grade item, if it is a graded assessed, I don't want to use the word assignment because it's not an assignment by the Brightspace terminology, but if it is something that you have assigned to them to do a discussion board and it includes a grade item, it will includes assessment here next to the ribbon. And when you click on the drop down, you can click on assess topic, and it will bring you to this kind of log of all of the different students that have posted within the discussion board and their scores. So the ones that you've already scored, you will see a score here, 0 out of 5, 4 out of 5. And then the ones that haven't turned anything in or haven't been scored are going to show up right here. All right, so that is it for discussion boards for now. And just in the interest of time, I'm going to continue to the groups tool. The groups tool is available once again, through the course admin. It's just called groups. And the groups tool is useful for many reasons. If you want to pair students together for kind of like a peer review situation where you want them to read each other's papers and provide feedback, you can do groups. If you have a group presentation as part of the final or the midterm, or possibly a group project where you are sharing a grade between multiple students. So they're turning in one item and they each get a grade for that item. Those are the situations in which it would be useful to have groups. The last reason to use groups is to replicate the journal experience from Blackboard. Brightspace doesn't have a tool that is equivalent to the journal, but what you can do is create groups of one kind of creating a area for each student that's visible only to that student and to you, so they can have a journal, they have a place they can upload files, and only you and the student would be able to see that discussion board and those files. So we're going to start by creating a new category. We can have multiple categories, so you can have multiple groups throughout the semester. You don't have to keep reusing the same groups. Let's say this one is going to be for a midterm presentation. So I'm going to call it midterm presentation. I can add a description. I don't have to. Next, I have to decide my enrollment type. So I have quite a few options here. I have groups of number. So if I want students to pair up, that means I want groups of 2 people. It doesn't matter how many groups it's going to turn out to be. I just know that I want groups of 2, no more. If, on the other hand, I only want a specific number of groups, like maybe I have 4 different topics that I want them to cover, and then the entire class has to divide themselves up into those 4 groups, we would have the number of groups, and then we would just type in how many groups. And then the students would divide themselves up between those groups. If we're choosing one of these, that means that the system is going to automatically decide who's going to be in which group. If we select the self-enrollment, these are the same options, groups of number or number of groups, means the students would have the ability to go in and select which group that they are in. So they'd be able to self-enroll themselves within the group. I do want to point out, whether it's randomly generated by the system or the students are enrolling themselves, you as the faculty have the final say. You are always able to go in and manually change students' groups. So you are not committed to whatever the system generates or whatever the students decide. You can always go in and move students around from group to group. The next option we have is number of groups, but this time there's a capacity. So in this case, we have, if we select this, we have 4 groups. It's entirely possible that, everyone's going to want to be in group 1 and 2, and then group 3 and 4 only have like 2 people in them. So if I do want to cap that, I can do number of groups, and then I could cap the number of users for each group. Finally, we have the single user member specific groups. And this is the journal equivalent I was talking about. It means each user that is enrolled in my class is going to have their own group with items that only they will have access to, as well as obviously us as the faculty. So with the purposes of the demo, I'm just going to say I want groups of 2 people, maybe for peer review or something. Scrolling down, I have some options here. Do I want to auto-enroll new users? Do I want to randomize users in the groups? Do I want to make the category and group descriptions visible to users? And then underneath here is where we're actually setting up the areas for users to do their work or upload their work. So I can set up some discussion areas. I can either have them be a part of an existing forum, or I can create a totally new forum just for this. Let's say I do that. I can set up lockers. This is going to set up a storage area where both you as the faculty, as well as the students that are part of that group, can upload files, download files, organize files in folders. It's basically just a storage area for students to share. And we can set up assignments. So if we do have a situation where we have multiple students turning in one assignment and sharing that grade, that would be called a group assignment, and we can set it up through here. However, we do have the Assessing Learning webinar coming up, And we are going to go into a lot of detail on how to create assignments. So I'm going to leave that off for now. And we're just going to stick with the discussion areas and lockers. Once we create this group, we can create group assignments at any time. So we're not limited to this moment. The group assignment can be created at any point in time. So I'm going to click Save. It's going to tell me my groups are being created. It's going to ask me how I want the discussion board to work. Do I want to create a specific topic per group, or do I want one topic with threads that are separated by group? Just going to do one topic per group. And it's letting me know forums were created, lockers were created. Done. So because I have a class list of 6 students, I ended up with 3 groups of 2. I can see the group members just by clicking on the members link. And it's going to tell me who's been paired up with who. It was completely random by the system. But I do want to show you how you can move students around. So if you click on the group name, and at the very top, there's an Enroll Users button. You can see your entire class list, and you can decide that for group 1, you don't want student A, you want student F. Right, I'm going to click Save. And now I have student B and student F. So now I just have to make sure that wherever student F currently is, I switch him out for student A. It's quite a mouthful. I do wish we just used some random names. There we go. I can make other changes to the groups as well. So if I click into the group, I can change the name. So maybe the midterm presentations have specific topics. I can change the name of the group so that it's associated with their topic. And so on. Now going across here, I have links to the discussion areas for each group. So if I click on this, it is going to take me to the midterm presentation for group 1 discussion area. And actually, if I go to the discussion list and I scroll down, here is the midterm presentation forum we just created, and the 3 topics, 1 per group. Now, when a student goes in, they will see the heading and only the topic that's the group that they're associated with. They will not be able to see the other groups, only the group that they're part of. If they move between the 2 groups, they will lose all access to their previous group materials, and they will only see the group that they're currently in. And then under Locker is where we can get to the group files. So obviously there's nothing here now, but we can see the storage amount here. We can upload files from our computer. We can create new folders. And from this area, we can also email our group members. So if I click on that, it is going to email both of the students that are in the group. If the group had more members, it would just list all of the group members here. So that's the groups tool. Before I move on, I do want to point out that we've had some questions about how do students see this. The students see it the same way that we've been looking at it. It's just that instead of seeing all of the different groups, they will see their own group. But they have the same view. They'll be able to see the discussions link, the locker link, and they'll be able to see their group membership as well. So next, I want to talk about class progress. I have a link on my navigation bar, or as always, we can get there through the course admin area. The class progress is a great way to view each student and what they've been up to, as well as my entire class as a whole. So when I first click on it, I have this dashboard where I can see my entire class list. I can see their system access. I can see how they're doing with my content, how far they've gotten with percentages, as well as the number of topics. I can see how they've been doing in quizzes, and it's color coded so I can see quizzes they've failed, where they've done well. I can see grades as a whole. So chronologically, I can see the progression of each student. I can customize this dashboard a little bit. There's not a whole lot of customization I can do, but if I go up to settings, I can switch out things that maybe I don't want to see necessarily for other items. So for example, maybe I don't use quizzes in my class, so the quiz performance is useless to me. I can click on the drop down, go to replace, and it's going to show me what I can replace it with. So I can replace it with assignment grades, checklist completion summary, discussions completion summary, objectives, or survey. So I use a lot of discussions, so I'm going to switch it to that. And when I click save and close, it's going to bring me back to that dashboard. But now instead of quizzes for each student, I can see their discussion stats. So this is just for me to look at it at a glance. But if I wanted to get a lot more granular, I could click on the student name. And it's going to take me to their entire progress summary. So I can look at their grades, what they received the grades for, if there's feedback, the date. I can see if they have been participating in the content or engaging with the content. It looks like this student has not. I can see how they've been doing within the discussions, assignments, quizzes, and then if I have checklists or surveys. And then the two bottommost ones are course access and system access. Course access is when students go into my course homepage. System access is just them logging into Brightspace. So it's possible for them to log into Brightspace without going to my course, and I have access to both of those statistics. I can navigate between my students by clicking the arrows. I can get through my entire class list. And for the students that have been looking at content, this is what it looks like. So when I expand it, I can see what content the students have engaged with, how many times they visited, and how long they spent in each one. Now, obviously, this is just a demo course, so these numbers are a little different from what you would expect to see with your students, but you get the general idea. You can see when they visited, how many times, and how long cumulatively they have spent within that content item. Finally, the last thing we're going to look at today is intelligent agents. I can get there through the course admin area, but I can also get there through the class progress page. So right here, I have a link, use agents to automate feedback. That brings me to the intelligent agent tool page. If you're not familiar with what an intelligent agent is, it is basically a way to automate your communications based on specific triggers. So if you want an email to go out to students automatically after they fail a quiz with maybe some resources, or if you want a celebratory email to go out to students after they've gotten 100% on the quiz, doesn't have to be a quiz. It could be assignments, it could be discussion boards, it could be their overall grade. There are a lot of different conditions we can choose from. Right now, we're going to go through and create a very basic agent, and it's going to be for students that haven't logged into my course in more than a week. Just because I want to make sure that students are participating. And if someone is not in my class for over a week, I want to send them an email saying, you need to come back to class. Participation is an important part of this. So we're going to start by clicking the new agent button. We're going to name our agent. The students aren't going to see the name, that's just for me. And if I have a lot of agents, I can organize them by category. Obviously, I don't have to. So the first item I'm looking at is the scheduling. How do I want this agent to run? I have the option of a one-time run, or I can run it hourly, daily, weekly, monthly, or annually. We're trying to catch students that haven't been on for a week, so checking it every day would probably be the best way to get that information quickly. And I'll have it repeat every day, maybe at 9 a.m. I can set up a start date and an end date if I wanted to start at some point in the future, or if I wanted to end maybe a week before the semester ends or something like that. Next up, I have the criteria. First, who do I want it to go to? It could be everyone within the class list. It could be users with specific roles. So if I just want to target students, I can choose that. If this is just for my teaching assistants, I can select that as well. I'm going to stick with students. And now here is where we come to the crux of how the system decides whether or not to send the email. We have the login activity and course activity right here. I'm guessing that's because they are the most common reasons why people would set up an intelligent agent, but you do have other conditions as well. So under release conditions, if I click create, these are all of the different conditions on which I could base an intelligent agent. So maybe I want an email to go out to a student as soon as they submit an assignment, as soon as they complete a checklist, as soon as they earn a specific award, as soon as they look at a specific content topic. You get the general idea. It could be based on pretty much any item that a student can interact with within our course. But we're trying to be pretty basic, so we're just going to stick with course activity today. As the user has not accessed the course in the last 7 days. And finally, we come down to the actions. The first option is to take action only the first time the criteria is met. The other option is to take action every time the criteria is met. So basically, this is if a student hasn't been in my class for 7 days, they're going to receive an email. Next day, they still haven't been in class for 7 days or 8 days. Do I want an email to go out again? If I do, I want to select that to take action every time. If I just want them to receive the one email and that's it, we're going to stick with the first one. I would like to send them an email every day until they finally show up to class. And this is where we type up the actual email. So first of all, we need to send it to the person that triggered the event. So right here where it says what special email addresses can I use, we would just need to copy and paste this string right here. And that ensures that the email goes out to the specific student that has not been in class for 7 days and to no one else. If there are multiple students, each one will receive their own separate email. They will not see each other's emails at all. Each email is going to be separate. I can also CC myself if I just want to be kept in the loop of who these emails are going out to. And then I put in the email. I have the strings for the subject and message as well, so I can maybe use their first name. I can add attachments. I can record a video. I can do all of my basic formatting here. I can add files. I can link to existing activities, whatever I want. And finally, I'm going to click Save and Close. Now back on the agent list page, This is the one we just created. You can see that it hasn't been enabled yet because it has a little X next to it. On the dropdown, I can, oh no, actually I can check it off here and click the enable button. And now I can see that it has a next run date scheduled. It's going to be tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. And once it starts running, it will also tell me the last time it ran and if anyone was identified. So there is a log of it besides the emails that go out to the students. I can also click here to see who was identified, and I can even view the emails that were sent to them. So you can see I can grab their first name. This time I grabbed the last time they accessed the class. So we can get all of that information from the replace strings. And I think I've covered everything I wanted to cover. I know we only have a couple minutes left, but Laura, are there any questions for me to address?
No, I'm just going to drop really quick in the chat a link to the YouTube video that we posted that shows the life cycle of a discussion board. So it's just a more abbreviated version of creating a discussion board, then showing a fake student taking or doing that discussion board, and then flipping back to being an instructor, grading that discussion board, and then showing the students seeing that feedback. So I've just put the link to that in the chat there. But no, you covered everything great.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Laura. And that is a great video. I do strongly recommend it. If you do have a question, oh, perfect. All right. You don't have any questions. Great. Well, thank you so much for joining today. I hope you learned something, and we'll see you in our future webinars. Have a wonderful day.